It's time that the laws of the world recognize that vaccination choice is a human right. It's an undisputed scientific fact that vaccines in their current state of development will kill and injure certain vulnerable people whom we can't identify and screen out in advance. Vaccines under U.S. law are correctly considered today unavoidably unsafe. A thorough reconsideration of compulsory vaccination mandates is long overdue, based on human rights and the language of the Jacobson decision itself. We must win the right to philosophical exemptions or the right to just say no to vaccination mandates in every state is a first step. Yay.
I might not speak out about this if I hadn't been trained to uphold the CDC's goals and objectives for public health. In 1988, their goal number one for the year 2000 was literally to increase the span of health life. It's not hard to see that American public health policy has failed at this. Data from several sources now show that our children's lives may be shorter than ours. This is a first. For the first time in U.S. history, children's life expectancies may be shorter than their parents. I was taught that those who die from vaccine injuries are probably defective and would die anyway. That these were necessary deaths. That these children were best weeded from the gene pool.
Military members are barred from suing the federal government under an archaic unconstitutional law that occurred in the 1950s called the Ferris Doctrine. Recent history has taught us nothing. Gulf War illness anthrax vaccine connection is evidence of this. Roughly 1 in 4 of the 697,000 veterans, my brothers and sisters, who served in the first Gulf War are afflicted with Gulf War illness. It was a toxic war, and there may be other contributory factors. But I'll tell you this, study after study shows a higher rate of Gulf War illness in vaccinated veterans. That's a fact. Unfortunately, the DOD at that time ordered that the anthrax vaccine and the botulism toxoid vaccine would not be annotated in the shot record. Instead, it was under VAC A or VAC B.
My son looked in the back seat and said, "Mom, I think something's wrong with Zeta." I pulled the car over, looked at her, and it looked like she had just had a seizure. I rushed her to the ER. This is where all the confusion started with her diagnosis. First, they accused her of overdosing on drugs. They yelled at her and told her that she needed to tell them what she took. They were screaming at her face, telling her she needed to tell them the truth. And then that's when she had another major seizure in the middle of the ER. That is when they finally started to take her seriously. By then, they also had her drug test results, which were negative for any illegal drugs. After those horrible few hours, they transferred Zeta to a local hospital with a pediatric neurologist and our pediatrician. I thought we were for sure going to get answers there. They started running all kinds of tests, because now Zeta is unable to say a whole sentence. She can only say a few words at a time. She was so scared, she was crying so hard. We had an MRI, a CAT scan, an EEG, a spinal tap. All the tests were negative, but the MRI, which showed what they called a shadow on the right side of her brain.
When is it going to stop? I say it stops today. We can have a morally relative, utilitarian world like you're talking about, where government can say, well, it's for the best of all, therefore we can throw some in front of the train. They did that during slavery times. That's good for the best of all. We can all make a lot of money and have a good time. It didn't make slavery right, and it doesn't make this right. That's right. Our founders understood that. They understood about self-evident sacred standards. They understood about self-evident inalienable rights, including liberty. And when they spoke of that liberty, they were talking about you as parents and your liberty to control and direct the upbringing of your child. Parents today find themselves placed on this earth at a time when all things sacred face destruction or irreverent mocking, including the audacious notion that they, not the government, are the best equipped people to make decisions as to vaccination choices with regard to the best interests of their child. What happened? Well, make no mistake about it. Governments all over the world, folks, all over the world are seeking to evict that moral standard, that self-evident standard that we can look to take a law and place it against and say, is it good or bad, right or wrong, just or unjust? Is vaccination choice right or wrong, good or bad, just or unjust?
Clark Kent just went into a phone booth. And that's what this is all about. That's what they're doing. These vaccines with bad safety studies. You know, I've been to a lot of these meetings, and something most people don't realize is the CDC, they like to dress up in military uniforms. And it kind of makes me nervous. I went down there, I said, doctors in military uniforms, it's a bad combination. You know, I'll go to these meetings and say, what is going on here? You know where it came from, fighting disease, and we're all in this together. I mean, it kind of makes sense historically, but doctors wearing medical, you know, it kind of reminds me. Anyways, I'd like to dedicate this song to our friends at the CDC. It's called Vaccine Gestapo. They got swastikas on their shoulders. They're such patriotic soldiers. They're like a militia in Montana. They're a government agency in Atlanta. Vaccine Gestapo! Vaccine Gestapo! Vaccine Gestapo! Vaccine Gestapo! Conscientious objectors are just little snots. Why don't you quit complaining and go get your shots? Vaccine Gestapo! Vaccine Gestapo! In case you didn't follow the pandemic, the great swine flu pandemic that seemed to fizzle, that one, if you look behind the scenes, there was some pharmaceutical company advisors to the WHO who recommended that they declare a pandemic. FDA regulators rubber stamp everything. Drug industry puppet masters yank their little strings. Big pharma beckons when it's time to make a leap. Merck's vaccine chief jumped from the top of the CDC. They don't get it. They just don't get it. They don't get it. Just don't get it. Hey, can you sing? We don't want their flu vaccine. We don't need their flu vaccine. They can keep their flu vaccine. We won't take